All right, so we're back. Conversations with Ma episode. Freaking A, man. So we're talking about faith today. Obviously, we have my Ma again. Ma, introduce yourself. You don't have to say your whole name.
I'm Mama. Since I don't have to say my whole name. Hello, everybody.
Because you were going to give me your whole
I was.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah, I've been doing it for all my life,
Well,
giving my whole name.
You could just give your first name.
Paulette. I am the mother of Justin. Okay.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. So anyway, as you can see, it takes a lot of faith to have her as my mama. So, but no, really. So we're going to talk about faith, how important faith is in your life. When you grew up in the church, but some people when they grow up in the church and they get older, they get outside the church and they stop going for whatever reasons. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as you say, I grew up in church, but as far as I can remember, there has been things of faith, or stuff given to me. I remember faith of a mustard seed. Am I right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Somebody actually gave me a mustard seed. It was back in the day. It was a little mustard seed inside of looked like a little globe inside of a necklace, and I wore that forever. And I was a little bitty kid, probably about 4 or 5 years old. In other words, when somebody told me to believe something, I did it. I wasn't one of those that's questions. That was way before Google. I didn't go like, well, Pastor, why do we need this faith? Grandma, what is faith? I didn't ask them. I just believed whatever they said. So that's how it basically started out, saying little bedtime stories when you go to sleep. And I just totally believed God would take care of me all my life. I've never questioned it. Now, to say that I didn't get angry and had times when, it's like, God, my faith was tested. Yeah, of course. God, you said if I do this, you would do that. So, yeah, of course, fall back. But still, I always knew that God was always there. He was always putting myself, kind of like I'm doing now, outside of the body and like I'm looking in. Or God was already there, waiting on me to like welcome me in. He was there preparing for me. And that's my faith. I always knew that he was there.
You said that you didn't really question certain things at times.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing your own research about certain topics.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? Like you said, you didn't have access to Google, and sometimes some stuff people were taught back in the day wasn't necessarily biblically sound, or they used it to manipulate people. What are your thoughts on that? I know you said Grandma Clara used to call people out.
Oh, yes, she did, because she knew the Bible, and she always told me to read it for yourself, because people would tell you anything. And she called, when he said call people out, she literally called the pastor out. That's who she was after, the preachers. Not anybody else, not carrying on a conversation. She literally would call out preachers in the middle of his sermon.
What? Like while he was like doing
Yeah, while he was preaching. The Bible didn't say
that. She was standing up?
She wouldn't stand up. She was little. She didn't have to stand up, but she yelled it out. The Bible didn't say that. And he would go on like, he would continue to preach. And after church was over with, she was 14, she would follow him around and would tell him exactly what the scripture said. And see, they come from a faith-based family, because as kids, they were trained. They always read the Bible during lunch. They always, it was 10 of them, and they always discussed the Bible. When you get together with them, anybody recall, they discussed the Bible. Family reunions, they still argue with certain ones, but they loved it. That was their joy. They loved the Bible. So no, you did not argue with my grandmother, and she would walk away from him, and he'd walk away from her. They never liked each other. She knew him all her life. All his life. And she made sure that she reminded him that I knew when you were born, and I know what type of person you were and what you did. And you don't know what you're talking about. And she was right.
So he was a mean pastor?
No, he wasn't a mean pastor. Actually, he was a nice person. He just wasn't reading the Bible like my he just didn't know the Bible like my mother.
Oh, so he was just kind of getting up there, talking.
He was getting up there, yeah, just saying, the stuff, the basic sermons, what we heard it back in the day, God gonna take care of you, and then he would preach about the when Christ died, well, during the crucifixion, he would preach about that, and we heard the same basic sermons, that we would hear all the time. And my grandmother was a type that she listened to every word, and if you said something that did not occur, or was at the wrong place, or did not happen, or could not happen, once said in the Bible, she made sure that she let him know. Now, out of the all sisters, there was 2 sisters there at the church. The other sister knew it also, but she wasn't like my grandmother. She would go and say, if my grandmother missed something, she would go and say, now, Clara, he said such and such, whispered in her ear. And of course, there go my grandmother, hounding behind him at 4 feet 10 and telling him what he should have said. She did that the whole time he was preaching. And she told us she did not want him preaching her funeral, nor did she want him there. So, even though she done my life, and of course he was not at her funeral.
Okay.
No, he wasn't there.
That's hilarious.
So that worked out.
That is hilarious. Well, she was straightforward.
Straightforward.
What about those moments when you see, like you said, your faith has been tested? What do you do in situations like that, especially like in our generation, when we see the stuff going on, and like you said, you feel, for me, because some of the stuff you had to deal with, I now have to deal with. What's a way to give encouragement, or how do people keep their faith?
People keep their faith by reflecting back, because when you know that God brought you through this and he got you in a different place, he's constantly directing your path. Like I said, things don't always go your way, but however, God is there. It's like he has already created a map for you. And when you get off and you don't follow the map like you should, or you want the map to go this way, but God's saying that. So basically, you learn that, okay, what do I need to do, Lord? What is your will? You completely turn it over to him then, to the Lord, and you understand that I have to follow him. Because remember when you turned it over? You remember when back in the day you turned it over completely to him? He worked it out instead of fussing and I want this and I want that. Sometimes you got to go back and said, I remember when. So I'm going to tell your generations that I'm sorry that you all got to go through some things that I went through, and I thought, well, a child won't have to go through that, my grandkids, but now I'm getting a little worried. But then again, I'm going like, well, God brought me through this. He's going to bring you all through it also. You just got to realize that, because as long as there's a God, he's going to bring you through this. And when you go back and, as my grandmother said, read it for yourself. When he brought the Israelites out and they acted up, he had to put them back on the path that they needed to go back on. It's always somebody in the Bible that has gone through something. Remember that saying. It's not in the Bible, but remember the saying. Nothing is new under the sun. Somebody's always gone through the same thing that you've gone through, but God has always delivered them and put them back on the path. That covenant. He gave us a covenant, and that covenant is a promise. And you got to rely on that promise. That faith that is unseen. See, like I said, I imagine it. And what I imagine normally is truthful. I've had to have faith for courage. I've had to have faith when I was sick. I had to have faith when my father was dying. I had to have faith when I lost my husband. I had to have faith when I came out and I couldn't find a job. I think that was the worst thing. I was mad at God. Thought I was mad at him about a while for that, because I'm like, hey God, I'm smart here. I've studied hard, Lord, and I try to keep up whatever you told me. And I can't get a good paying job. But God wanted to direct me into another path. Because I gotten a job that I really wanted, I may not have ended up with the job that I did get.
I think it's important to, what you said about the path that we're on. I think sometimes people forget that their decisions can impact somebody else's path.
Yes.
So like that's the thing, God's given us free will, but then sometimes if you misuse the will you have, you can mess up somebody else's life, or you can cause damage to someone else. And that can then redirect them from, God, and to redirect them toward whatever they're trying to pursue, whether it be anger, vengefulness, or whatever it is, spitefulness, because people that are supposed to be in the faith are not being faithful to not just the word, but to the love of God too. And so I think that's an important piece, especially when you said the path. That path piece is really important, because everybody has a path, but
Yes,
along
they
that
do.
path, we encounter a whole lot on that path. And you hope that you encounter more good and bad on the path. But sadly, when people are younger, or sometimes people get older, they encounter more bad on the path. And then it makes them question, well, God, why am I dealing with this bad when I've tried to do so much good?
Exactly.
It's hard to stay on a faithful path when people have not been faithful to me. So I think that's important to, other people have gone through it, and I think that's important for people to share what they've gone through, because when you do that, you make faith realistic.
Yes.
Faith in some ways sadly seems like an imaginary thing, because we don't talk about it enough. Or if we do talk about it, we only talk about it when it comes to money, homes, cars, material things, relationships. But just the faith of, like you said, courage. I'm glad you said that. Because it does take faith to be courageous. You got to, what I'm doing, I'm going to actually be able to do.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Well, they come up on your jobs and whatever. When I was talking about being courageous, maybe somebody said something about you, which happened in my past, said something about me, was lying all over me in the town, and you be going like, me, Lord? I don't bother nobody, Lord. I've always, anybody know me, I'm going to hang back. I don't like being seen. I don't like being noticed. I'm just going to come in there and do my thing and leave. Okay, but of course, I had one of these bosses long time ago that blamed me for something. And the man that he had been talking to literally came in and said to my face, "You're not the problem. You are not the problem. That man is going all over town that said you did something wrong." No, it was not you. It was him. And that right there, those words, I don't remember whoever the man was. I was young at the time, newly married, but I don't recall nobody's name. I recall my boss's name. I'm not going to call his name. But anyway, I just said, I got to have a conversation with this man, because this man going around lying on me. Okay? I don't like being lied on. It's one thing you don't do to me. You tell the truth. Okay? I try to tell the truth. So I want you to be respectful to me and be truthful to me. So, I prayed. I set up a meeting for the man that was directly over me and the man that was directly over him. And I prayed, Lord, go in that door. That's the reason I said I could always go back on faith, because I knew God was in that door. God guide my mouth. God let me say what I need to say. So when I got finished looking that man in his face and telling him how I felt, well, I don't know how he felt, but I felt good. And I got my word across to him. And I continued to work there. Hey, nothing was done. I kept on going on. It's something I always remember, but it's behind me, because God has brought me so far from that.
That's good. Well, y'all, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yes, we will.
We will. All right. So thank y'all. See y'all next time.
Bye.